Greetings, everyone. Good afternoon. We're going to call this meeting to order. The first item on our agenda is the Massey Property FY05, FY07 CDBG activity. Staff are going to come forward. There's a memo that they put together, and I'll turn it over to them.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hello.
Members of council. The memo pretty much walks you through this as we had discussed or had notified you all previously that staff were working on this, and actually I believe last October, one of the recommended uses of some funds was to have some funds set aside to handle this, if in fact this would be HUD's determination. So staff have worked with HUD, and the determination is that we pay back to ourselves, to the program, $164,000 and some change.
Which will come from fund balance, correct?
That's the recommendation. We can walk you through, or we're here for any questions.
Yeah, I have some questions. I absolutely agree with everything in the memo. The question is, though, after we do this, what happens? These properties are in county hands, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what's the plans? Has the county been involved with discussions?
Not with this part. I have had a discussion as recently as today with the county. There's I believe there was a confidential proposal made to them a week or so ago. We have another business proposal to present to the county that a investor came forward proposing a development there, and we're coordinating that with the county as the property owner.
Okay, and I guess maybe a much better first question is, the subject is the Massey property. So I don't know what that means. Does that mean the Massey building? Does that include the two houses?
It does. It's all those properties. And
my understanding is, if I could interrupt you, by us going forward with this action, it basically frees up the Massey property to be redeveloped.
It removes
without restrictions.
It removes
put by HUD.
the current restrictions that HUD has on use of the property, as well as MHT review for whether or not demolition could occur at those buildings.
I'm trying to figure out which, because you're talking about
Three buildings.
Three buildings, but I guess my concern is more with the Massey. I mean, we're using that term house pretty loosely for those other two structures. But my concern is that Massey building. I mean, if we're talking about this repayment process, I'm trying to figure out what we're trying to get out of. In other words, is it because these two proposals are of a commercial nature and we did the CDBG for residential purposes, or?
No, sir.
You know what I mean? I'm trying to figure out what we're in non-compliance of.
The repayment is because of when it was proposed, it was a good project that didn't come to fruition.
What was the project?
The housing.
The townhouse.
Okay.
The housing that was proposed, and HNDP was undertaking that, and the city was supporting that.
However, I was on the planning commission at the time, and the reason the project didn't go forward, my recollection is that in order to make the economics work, they had to increase the density such that it was not palatable to anyone on the planning commission.
Yes,
So that's why the project fell through.
So how's it in the county? How's it owned by the county? If we have 164,000, or what's the county having?
The county has deed ownership.
Yeah,
They paid $1.2 million for the total property.
the county purchased the property, and so the county owns the property. We had money in the property prior to the county owning it, and there were a number of or sequence of events where things weren't as tight as they could have been in terms of regulatory compliance back in 05 to 07. And when we discovered those things, we reported that to HUD. We worked with HUD, worked through it, and HUD has determined, because of the missteps in 05 and 07, that the funds are due back to the program.
And again, I have.
And that's regardless of future use.
So I have no problem with
Okay.
that, but I get back to my first question. These properties have now been in the situation they're in for 5 years, maybe?
A
Not
long time,
longer.
sir. It's probably longer.
And when I hear about the county entering into confidential negotiations, I gotta tell you, it doesn't impress me. These houses need to be taken down, and they need to be taken down immediately. The thought process that there's going to be negotiations without an end point does not impress me at all. I can see us sitting here 4 years from now, like we did with the Tusing warehouse, still discussing issues like this. So all I can say is I either want the county to bring us into these discussions, or I expect, I mean, there's not a building there that's even remotely in compliance to any of our codes. And I candidly can't conceive of citing one single property owner in this city with a code violation if the day that we pay this money back, we don't cite the county. What's there is abysmal. And worse than that, if you drive down Baltimore Street and you observe from Potomac in Baltimore up to Locust in Baltimore, what you're going to find is all those homes have been completely, they're very nice. They're very nice. There's a library there that you look at this, and there's a synagogue across the street that's been there for over 100 years that every single person from out of town has to come and see what's there. And there's two questions. One, who owns it? And two, why doesn't the city do something about that stuff? And the answer is, oh, well, government owns it, and government ain't going to do something to government. But we sure will go after people for weeds growing between the cracks in their sidewalk. And that's not directed at you guys. That's directed at us. And I feel really strongly about it personally. And I think this is going on way too long. And I'm, for one, not interested in hearing about they don't need to tear it down because they're talking to somebody. But that's my 2 cents.
Jonathan, this is a very nice piece of work. When you can take a debt and pay it off by giving it to yourself, that works pretty good. Lou's absolutely right. That whole block's trash, but especially the Massey problem. I think this offers some real potential for improving that area. Lou, I really do think that this has incredible potential, the most we've seen, at least since I've been on the council. And I do think that if we need to move along with this expeditiously, but the county needs to move along with us expeditiously as well. I've talked to Greg Murray about this a couple of times, about this property a couple of times, without knowing about this thing that we're discussing today, because of other people who were interested. And they seem willing to work with us. But Lou is right. It needs to be done pretty quickly. We don't even want to be sitting here a year from now talking about this. These things need to be done. I've forgotten. What's our fund balance? Can somebody tell me?
Well, this was part of the 1.2 in net surplus from FY13 when we talked with the council last fall. We didn't get a final decision on using that money for this, but it was on the list of potential uses from that surplus.
Well, Jonathan, you did a great piece of work. Thank you. And this gives us an opportunity we haven't had before to move forward and to really improve that block. And you know what? Lou is absolutely right. Synagogue's been sitting there for 100 years, and for most of that time, they've been looking at real junk across the street, and it's embarrassing.
I would just add, I do know that the county, even when they were proposing the library parking lot, and the county was planning to maintain ownership of that piece along Baltimore Street, the idea was that it would always be redeveloped. It would be turned over to some private developer to be put back on the market, on the tax roll, so to speak. So, you know, we hear from the county that they are willing or looking for opportunities to be partners. And I guess what I'm hearing several council members suggest is that they could start with the properties they own already. And of course, we'll be looking to them to be partners with their property on further down Baltimore Street on the corner of Summit and Baltimore. They own the building on Washington Street next to their current administration building that they haven't really done anything with yet. So there's plenty of opportunities for the county to invest in downtown Hagerstown.
Mayor, I think the county, quite frankly, because of the last elections, has a rare opportunity to cooperate with us now in a way that may not be possible in the future. So,
Well, we always look for that partnership, and I think at least with this requested action that I believe we're going to get a majority to support, I think it will at least give more options or more flexibility to the redevelopment, perhaps more expeditiously without all the restrictions being placed on it.
Is the trust completely out of this now?
Yes, after
If we do
after
this.
the CDBG fund is made whole, the trust is out.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions for staff?
I mean, I think that as part of this direction, my expectation is in doing this, that the Massey building aside, it moves the ability for the demolition of the two neglected structures, from the property. I mean, anybody that can go by there and argue that, there is some salvageability to them, it needs to put up the $100,000 plus for either one of them that it would take to do it. And in the 20 years they've been sitting like that, nobody,
Has stepped
even offered free. Nobody would jump or has jumped at that chance.
Mr. Munson?
John, you recall not too long ago, we took a tour of those buildings
Yes, sir.
with the gentleman who runs the Historic Trust.
Yes, sir.
And I'm trying to remember, once this deal is cut, are there impediments from the state that we have to be concerned about? This takes care of the federal government, but the state may be another issue.
Not that we are aware of. If the county puts state or federal funds into the property, then all the barriers come back, or all the requirements, I should
Right.
say, come back. But this removes any requirement that's imposed because of the city's past involvement with this property.
Okay, so it gives us a fairly clear path.
It takes the city imposed, our action imposed some requirements. This action removes those
It takes some.
requirements.
So this opens things up to potentially allow us to move a little faster.
For the property owner to demo, or
I'd see if you get a package deal when you raise Antietam. That's my very blunt opinion on it.
So,
To implement this, to implement this, we'd have to have a motion.
the motion on the 22nd.
okay.
To satisfy the HUD requirements.
Sounds like we have everybody on board with that, so.
The other thing to note with this process is the funding that would be repaid to our CDBG program income account becomes available to us again for CDBG eligible projects. And as noted in the memo, we're recommending that we add that to our home ownership program, which is also noted in the Urban Partners report as one of the strategies to revitalize and improve our home ownership opportunities in the targeted areas. So we will actually have to amend our action plan that we just approved to reflect that additional funding.
Gotcha. Okay. So you'll have some more stuff for me to sign then?
Yes,
on my
correct.
desk. All right. I know we just went through that whole process.
So you say we need a motion to put this on the agenda?
Well,
We'll have a motion for, on the
agenda
22nd.
for the voting
Okay,
session.
so it'll be on the agenda
When
on
we
the
vote.
22nd.
Yeah, when we
If
vote.
we vote for it, okay. Or support it.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Kearns.
We've got a neighborhood first group in the north end that we talked about.
The next item is the Community City Center Plan implementation. This would be number 8 and the recommendations for neighborhood support strategies, I'm going to turn it back over to John Mastician.
Yes, and Paul Falk and Gary Lambert will be joining me at the table should you have any questions of them. Gary is the program manager and runs the administrative side of the rental licensing program, and Paul is the inspections manager and handles our field work in terms of managing the inspection staff. The memo kind of walks us through our reality. And when I worked with staff to develop this, our words let me say it this way. I think it's a fair assessment of where we are. Our neighborhoods are hurting, and we hear that here. Urban Partners heard that at their public sessions and in their focus groups. And
We all hear it in our neighborhoods when we walk our dogs and
we do.
take the walk.
and we all see it. And I like you, I live in the city, just a few blocks from here, and we're all frustrated. And what we're asking for, and we'll walk through each of the recommendations, but what we're asking for is a return to the level of support that we initially had with the rollout of the rental licensing program in 2003. And that's to staff us at 6 inspectors. We currently have 3. And in looking around to other jurisdictions, a workable caseload, if you will, for an inspector is anywhere from 13 to maybe 1,500 units that they handle. Right now, we're at 3,000 units per staff person. It's not possible. It's not possible to provide the level of support that we need to. And so we're proposing 4 things, and I'll just kind of walk through there, and then we're here to answer your questions or concerns. We're proposing that the exterior inspection requirement return to what it was originally, and that's an annual inspection. Currently, it's biennial inspection, and if someone doesn't have any serious issues, then it's skipped their next time, so then it's 4 years. It becomes quadrennial. And what that does is that results in an increase in complaints. And instead of having an orderly fashion of going through the neighborhoods, we end up chasing our own tails. The second recommendation is that we amend the interior inspection requirement. And as noted in the memo, what we initially had didn't work. Not well. What we have now doesn't work well. And so what we're proposing, and just to be clear, it's that we develop a 4-year schedule. So over 48 months, we plan to go through all the rental units. And if you have a tenant turnover before it gets to be your time, the clock gets reset. So you can still call for a tenant turnover inspection, and then the clock's reset. So we're trying to find that balance. But Paul, can you tell us about how many units we have not been in?
Approximately 3,000 units we have not been in the city.
Out of the 9,000.
Out of the 9,000.
And
So a full third.
a full third, and that's over the course of, since 2003, over 11 years of inspecting. There's still a third we've never been inside. So we would say the current system doesn't work, at least not well. But if we had an orderly system where if somebody has a turnover, they can still call, report the turnover, we come, we inspect, we reset the clock. But that we would actually have an inspection schedule. And that's where we're trying to find the balance. I remember working with 3 of you back in 2002 and 2003, trying to find that balance of tenant privacy. And what we're proposing today is trying to find a new balance that meets the needs of the neighborhood and protecting folks with still providing an opportunity for inspections to occur, tenant turnover. The third is, and it's what I basically led with, is returning the staffing levels to 2003. And that's to add back in the three inspectors, so we would have a total of 6 inspectors to handle code and neighborhood support functions. And the last is how we pay for this. And in looking at our rental licensing fee, it's currently $50. Initially in 2002, when we were talking about this, we talked about a $50 fee. And we came to a compromise position with the landlord groups, and we reduced it down to $39. It then increased to $45, it then increased to $50 in 2008, and has been flat. The amount that we're requesting that it increase is to $75. And that equates to an increase of $2.08 per month. Currently, the fee is $4.17 or so a month. It'd go up to about $6.25 a month cost. And we believe, from a staff perspective, that that's a reasonable rate because it funds what we need to support our neighborhoods and to handle the large volume, the growing volume of rental properties. So with that, we're here to hear your questions. Urban Partners had heard this, they had seen it.
They recommended
It's in their recommendation, and no neighborhood is immune from what we are experiencing. We're seeing it everywhere. And so staff ask for your support in this, and we're here to answer your questions.
Does anyone have any questions or comments they want to start off with?
I mean, I have some questions.
Yes, sir.
Couple of things. The current conditions portion where it talks about problem rental properties and goes on more specifically to talk about poor tenant management.
Yes,
Because I
sir.
think that those are two different issues, but I think you'll probably find that they're common to the same places you go to where the issues exist. And so, I mean, before I would be in favor of of a 50% increase in the fee, I come back to this question, which is an issue we're going to talk about later, which is the shelter facilities
Yes,
of
sir.
nonprofit entities.
Yes, sir.
Because I think that speaks to those issues of tenant management, because I think there is a clear chain in which individuals leaving shelters then enter into lease agreements and some of our poorly managed properties. I mean, I think that's just occurring. And so I guess my question is, will that be included, because it's a little bit of a different animal than our original inception of the program, those years back. And then
Are you asking if shelters will be inspected? Is that the question?
if various shelter facilities are included in that rental inspection process.
It's not included in the rental licensing, and that's
Okay.
not the proposal for this evening, though I know there's interest that you've expressed, sir, in having some sort of a legislative or regulatory program for those.
I just remember
And
sitting here, 10 years ago now, 11 years, and Carol Moeller asking the question, will it include, and I forget which entity she cited at that moment, at that meeting, but that was all it took for her to say yes, to supporting it. And so, whatever type of facility that included at that time, I just can't remember the name
yeah,
of it,
I'd have to go back and check.
is, you know, what I would want that original idea to return to, or be inclusive of.
Well, John, to clarify, we haven't eliminated any categories of housing
No, sir.
from rental licensing that, as it was created in 2003.
Correct. We haven't eliminated any categories. The little I know right now in terms of where this body would like to go in terms of regulatory programs for the nonprofit housing, I would envision that being a separate standalone program, so as to not to cloud the regular rental licensing program.
Because people in shelters probably don't pay rent. There's not that kind of arrangement, I would assume, which is why you want it to be standalone.
I would.
That and how people actually acquire their tenants. So if you have various nonprofits that have housing, Turning Point has housing, Wells House, W House, all these places have housing.
Somebody's paying rent.
And
Somebody's paying the rent.
Right.
and
No, I'm thinking that's different than a shelter then. But I agree with you that
Yes.
some system or some mechanism needs to.
Yeah, and I apologize if I'm using the term incorrectly. But
That's all right. Yeah, that's all right. I'm just trying to ask clarifying questions. Go ahead.
well, the other one is this number one. It looks like the city has moved away from annual and went to a 2-year, 4-year
Yes, sir.
cycle. And I agree that that's probably hurting us, especially the inspection staff.
It is, sir.
Their ability to keep up. At minimum, this is just me speaking, at minimum, I would like to go back to at least an every 2-year. So I'm at least that far with
Okay,
you.
sir.
And then this amend the interior inspection schedule, I will tell you, just as I was not in favor of it during its original inception, I'm still not in favor of what I would conceive as being forcibly going in to a rental that somebody's been in for 30 years and say, now I'm going to automatically come in every 4. I wasn't supportive of it then. I'm not supportive of it now. I think that to me is overreaching. I understand staff's interest in doing that, but I just am not. I'm not in favor of that. I appreciate and accept that the tenant turnover approach, even the biannual or annual approach, but you know, going into somebody's place and they've lived there for 16 years and, you know, never an issue at the GOT.
We can.
I think that's spinning the wheels of our limited resources into places where we talk about very often about, you know, the average tenant turnover in these 2
Yes, sir.
blocks being every 7 months. Those are, I think, the issue areas that we, at least for me, we should be more focused on. And that's just my opinion on that.
Yes, sir.
And then the last question I have was as it relates to restoring staffing to 2003 levels, and it talks about the 8 and minimum of 6. I think that unlike 2001 to 2003 timeframe, and where the economy was you know, improving, where home sales were improving, clearly home sales have changed. That dynamic has changed, and there is arguably a much larger housing stock of vacant, owner-occupied, for sale housing. And I would want to make certain that unlike our initiative, you know, those years ago that focused most heavily or solely on that rental side, that somewhere in this mix, it allows the ability for this increased staffing level to focus some effort on vacant houses within neighborhoods, because I think in some of these neighborhoods you'll find the vacant homes are as equally detrimental to the quality of the neighborhood and its, you know, property management style as the turnover in some rentals. I mean, I just think it's out there and you see it, you know, regardless and I think that stretches more across the gambit of new and older neighborhoods, more so than even the rental,
And
you know, issues that we're attempting to address.
if I could respond to that, there's no doubt that vacant properties are having a negative impact on our neighborhoods. And staff will return in August with a recommendation on how we handle the vacant properties. And we have a vacant residential program that needs tweaked.
And I have a suggestion for that, and this speaks to the issue of where can our county assist us. If you remember the EDC meetings we had where we sort of wanted to talk about where can the county assist us in programs to improve the city, not
Yes, sir.
where can they tell us things to do. The county collects a transfer tax. I would be interested to see if the county would have an interest in, and I don't know what the amount is, but it's sizable. And they clearly receive some of that transfer tax from properties that are transfer ownership in the city of Hagerstown. It would be interesting to see if the county would partner in providing the amount necessary to fund 2 inspection officers through the transfer tax that would speak solely to that issue or be funded solely, to that effort, as a partnership approach. So that's my 2 cents on seeing if we could get.
That's something worth investigating on the vacant, and there's no doubt that the vacant properties have a negative impact. What we're trying to do in the presentation today is to say, what's the first step? And from a staff perspective, the first step in addressing the appeal that we're hearing from our residents is to get a better handle on what's happening at our rental properties. I know, because I was here, that there's going to be pushback from the property owners. I know that that's coming. I also know, from my perspective, that what staff is proposing is reasonable and prudent and the right thing to do for our residents, because right now, having 3 staff, we can't do it. So when I sit here and I listen to residents say, my neighborhood's getting bad, the properties around me are deteriorating, occupied properties, primarily rental, are deteriorating, I stood back here last week talking, or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, speaking with some of the people who had spoke here. I talked to them after the meeting, and I have to say, I can't have staff look at the property on either side when they're there to address this one property, because they're running from call to call, from complaint to complaint. We can't do this.
Mr. Mayor, I completely agree with staff's recommendations except for one, and I think we need to figure out a way to do it. I have some similar feelings that Councilman Alshire has as to recommendation number 2. I completely agree with everything else that staff has in here, as far as increase, as far as everything. My concern is simply this. We grew up being told, whether it's true or not, that your home is your castle. And, the common joke that everybody goes is, knock, 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 I'm from the government, I'm here to help you. When we start telling tenants that we're coming in to your home and we're going to inspect it, it may be being done for their well-being, for the quality of their lives, and for the quality of the neighborhood. But I'll tell you one thing, if the city decided they wanted to come into my house and inspect my interior, I would be upset. I would be very upset. If one of the biggest mistakes I thought that I ever made, and it's not a big issue, but it came up years and years ago with the question of mandating that private homes have smoke detectors in them. And I think they should, especially when you have our government handing them out for free. In the same respect, if somebody were to say to me, pass a law mandating that the fire department go into everyone's home in Hagerstown and ensure that they have properly working smoke detectors and give them one if they don't, I would be very upset about that. I do not and cannot support government intrusion into someone's home without their permission. That doesn't mean I would not firmly support our staff seeking permission of renters to be allowed to inspect and explaining what the inspection is about, and if they said yes, and/or inviting them to please notify us if you feel your apartment needs to be inspected. That may be a good way to start. The other thing we need, the only concern that I have on that side is guaranteeing these folks that they're not going to get evicted by a landlord because there was an internal inspection that caused certain issues, and that's a difficult thing to do. But that's my only hang up. I can't support the interior inspections. I support them totally on tenant turnover. And I totally support them on permission from the tenants. But I don't support them on us telling someone who's living in what is, when Kristen mentions, and I have folks in my neighborhood that have been in rental properties for over 10 years in the same property. These people, that's their home. And I don't think we have a right to tell them we're coming into their home without permission any more than we have a right to tell a homeowner that. So I can't support that, but I can support 100% of everything else in here, from your increase in inspectors to your exterior inspection timetable to the funding to the whole 9 yards. And the last thing I would add about the pushback, I think we're all waiting with bated breath to hear how horrible it's been for property owners with the legislation we passed, the nuisance legislation. So far, I haven't gotten any complaints that that's being unfairly dealt with, or people that are quote good landlords are having problems. So that's a way to discuss it too.
I'm wondering if, before we hear from Ms. Nye, Mr. Munson, could you explain the rationale for number 2, amending the interior inspection schedule to every 4 years? Just go over that briefly for everyone.
Well, I think it's a couple-fold. One is to make it more manageable for staff. 2, to actually get into every unit at least over a period of years. And when we looked at it and said 11 years out, there's still a third of the units we haven't been in.
Well, what sorts of things do you look for in an interior inspection? I guess that's what I was looking for.
Electrical, how the condition of the outlets, we'll inspect the mechanical systems, the plumbing systems, for obvious leaks, deterioration. Ceiling heights do come into play. That's something, and we've adjusted the code on that. We're probably the only jurisdiction that has ceiling heights as low as we currently allow. Those are the types of things that we're looking for.
And in most rental units, doesn't the property owner always maintain a right to inspect the interior of their own property for regular maintenance purposes or whatever?
It depends on how they have that contracted with
Right.
their tenant.
However the lease is arranged.
Yes,
But,
sir.
I mean, it sounds to me like what you're saying is, we'll come in and inspect your place for free and let you know if there's issues.
Well, it's
Well,
not.
it wouldn't be free, but
it's
it would be for the fee that you pay. You're getting, here's an update on the condition of your property. I mean, if I was a property owner, I might appreciate, that effort. But I hear what the council member is saying. I understand someone's home, and if they
And-
lived there for over 4 years.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the property owner. I'm worried about the tenant. That's where my concern is, Mayor. I'm not concerned about that property owner. He's in the business. The tenant is a homeowner who's living there, and it can, people, everybody are different. There are hoarders. There are people who don't want people in their homes, especially if it's the government. It's just not something. I can't imagine that most of us who are private homeowners would have somebody from the government knocking at our door and saying, "We're here, we'd like to inspect your house so we can find out whatever defects may need to be corrected." I would bet you that 99% of everyone who got that door knock would go, "You got a warrant?" Not say, "Oh, please come in and tear my house apart." And that's where my problem lies, not the property owner, it's the tenant.
Mr. Munson, Ms. Nye?
First, I got to thank Paul. I'm sure I'm Paul's biggest customer. I talk to him on a daily basis, 2 today. And I'm sorry about that, Paul, but they complained to me and I got no place else to go.
That's fine.
So I thank you and your folks for doing what you can do. There's no question we need more staff in your department. We don't need 7, we need 8, probably 10 actually. If we're going to get some assistance from the county like Kristen suggests, I would hope that that would be in addition to what we do. And you know what? This is a really good memo. This is a really thoughtful memo. Our neighborhoods are deteriorating. I can look at places on Hamilton Boulevard when I was growing up that were incredibly nice places to live now. But people have let them go to hell in a handbasket, and they're really bad places to live now. That's Hamilton Boulevard. That's a good part of our tax base. Now, I share some of the same problems that Lou and Kristen have with regard to in going into people's apartments, but when I was in Annapolis, for 25 or 26 years, I always rented the same apartment every session. The building was in downtown Annapolis, so it was better than 100 years old. And every session, they contacted, the city of Annapolis contacted me and said, we are inspecting. Every year, we are inspecting. You need to be there, the landlord needs to be there, and we will come in and we will inspect it. It was a very professional inspection. And, you know, I did feel like it was intrusive in some respect. But you know what? One time I walked into my apartment in Annapolis. The guy upstairs had forgotten for 2 days to turn the bathtub off, and the ceiling had fallen in. And I knew when I called my landlord and said, hey, Mr. Landlord, I don't have a ceiling, that I wasn't going to have any trouble at all in getting a new ceiling over the next few days, because the city of Annapolis was going to be there and make sure that I got a new ceiling. I found that rather reassuring. Now, one thing that I need to point out is during this last campaign for the city and previous campaigns, I knocked on doors of the city of Hagerstown a lot. And I went into some of this, unfortunately I have to say this, some of the sleaziest places were in this town where people should have to live. And I was appalled at what I saw. I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about wires hanging down from the ceiling, bare wires hanging down from the ceiling. You walk into rooms and the drawers are missing. There's holes in the walls. And low-income people have to live in these places. They deserve better, but they don't get better from some of the landlords that are renting properties. I do think that we need to find some compromise where some of these places are seen, occasionally at least, to see that they're not in the horrible condition that some of them are presently in. So I really like what I've read here, and I've read it carefully several times and thought about it. It's, at least nothing else, a great place to start. Let me ask you this. I'm not quite clear what the implication of Kristen's initial question was, but would this cover Section 8 housing?
Project-based Section 8 and tenant-based Section 8 properties are covered by this program. For example, Elizabeth Court, Alexander House, or an individual property owner who accepts a tenant-based Section 8 voucher is in the program. We do have an amendment to the program, I forget what year it was passed, where we accept the Housing Authority's inspections. It was in 2010.
Right.
So if the housing authority does an interior inspection, we'll accept their inspection as our own.
I'm on their board, so I'm aware that they do inspections, but,
Yes.
and I think they do very professional inspections, isn't
Yes,
that
sir.
right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And we're not proposing a change to that in terms of accepting their inspection.
Okay, now, it's unfortunate, but these problems aren't limited to people who rent properties.
Yes, sir.
Some private homes occupied by homeowners are really pigsties. And I hate to use that term, but I can go to a few of them, not too distant from where I live. Would this program have any effect at all of attempting to improve those circumstances?
Not on the rental licensing side of it. If an inspector is called to a complaint, the same as they're called to a complaint now at an owner-occupied property, they handle it. What we want to talk to you about in August is the vacant structure part and a funding source for that would also supplement. Because primarily we're 60-40 rental. And we have more issues at rental properties than we do at owner occupied.
Right.
Both because,
And you're handling owner occupied anyway because most of it is exterior,
yes, and
whenever you can get to that part.
so as Councilmember Nye says, we currently try to deal with that. But when we talk about the vacant structures, we have some thoughts to share on the owner occupied stuff as well.
Okay, good. Well, this is a very thoughtful piece, and I support what you got here, at least as a starting point. And hopefully it's going to keep the ghettoization, I think that's a term that's being thrown around, of Hagerstown in check if we can implement this.
My only question is there any way that you can determine in all of the properties that are rental properties, how many of those properties that people have been in and have actually lived in for a long period of time?
We can.
I mean, you know, looking at a turnover, I can see that that's happening more than what we are actually seeing as those who have lived in a place, say, even 2 years. You know, that's a long-standing run for the city of Hagerstown because most of your people are constantly moving.
Yes, in some areas of the city, we can determine that based on a utility record. If there had
Right.
been a change in
Right.
customer, that may indicate
Yeah.
that there was a turnover. It may indicate that they just changed electric from one tenant's name to another.
Yeah. Well, I'm in agreement with Lou and with Kristen when it comes to that. I am, John. I mean, when people have lived there and
Yes,
you
ma'am.
have more than one apartment, usually there's going to be a turnover, you know, at maybe the other one. But some of these people have, you know, a lot of the older people that have lived there for years and years and years. And that's the issue. That's the main issue. I don't have a problem with anything else either, but you're going to have to tweak that one.
Okay.
And I imagine you can, John. When I hear of your backlog and all your problems, I would assume just between the turnover interior inspections and voluntary inspections,
Yes, sir.
would probably keep you
It
busier than you need to be.
It-
My guess is you can get that stuff done, and clearly there may be, out of those 3,000 never been inspected, you'll figure out which ones you really think need to be, and you make the request, and then we look back and find out what's the activity been with regards to people saying yes voluntarily, if we had any issues, and we can review them. But I think you clearly understand what the concerns are and privacy concerns.
Absolutely, sir.
You know, and if you can, the ones that are volunteer, I don't want to hamper anybody from losing their place.
Right.
And landlords can be a piece of work, and they can really, you know, I mean, the whole apartment building down here on Summit is now
ma'am.
starting to really jockey, okay? Because, you know, we're not looking at leases, we're evicting people, and, you know, all of this good stuff. So that's what I'm saying, you know, if I don't want those people to be in fear of if they say, gee, you know what, I would like for you to come in. Because
ma'am.
I know that on my street, can I please just get somebody in here to look at this?
And,
You know?
and the inspectors deal with the real fear that tenants have of reporting things.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we all have taken calls over the years
Yes.
where a tenant says, I have a concern, it's my furnace, or it's my hot water tank. But if you inspect it, do you have to tell my landlord I let
Yeah.
you in?
yeah.
Those are the things that we hear. So we understand that
Yeah.
dynamic. We've dealt with it. I think what I'm hearing from the council is that we're okay on, number one, amending the annual inspection back to what it was in '03, instead of the exterior inspection, back to annual instead of biennial and then quadrennial, depending on results. That we could increase the funding as we recommended, and then with that, have authorization to restaff the office back to what we were in 2003. I think that goes a long way to meeting what Urban Partners is talking about and what our citizens have said. So if it's the will of the council, we would prepare amendments to the rental licensing program along this line, and then
Number 1, 3, and 4.
along the lines of 1, 3, and 4.
I think Kristen has heartburn with number 4, don't you, Kristen? You're not happy with that yet?
Well, it's a fee for service. I mean, it pays for it.
Here's the reason that
I do think it would be good for staff to pursue the suggestion of the transfer tax and see if the county would be willing to work with us on recovering.
And as
some
I
of
understood
fee.
that would be to help with vacant properties.
it isn't that I'm not happy. It's that I read in a memo
I said heartburn, didn't I?
that, yeah, heartburn. It's that I read in the memo that we went from 6 inspectors to 3.
Yes, sir.
And when I talk to a property owner that is affected by those decisions that we make, the first question and the most relevant question will be, if you went from 6 inspectors to 3 and your fee went from 39 to 50, where did the other funding go that you are not now able to pay for the 3 inspectors that you lost?
I can answer that question.
Okay.
The order of the fee increases, it went from 39 to 45 to 50.
Right.
And we had 6 inspectors. Prior to consolidation of the Office of Code Compliance and permits and inspections, that's the best year we have where we had budgets separated. We had a general fund contribution that was supplementing the rental inspections, and in that year, we had about $200,000 going into
See, if I remember
the
that
Office of Code
supplemented like 2 of the
Compliance.
inspectors
Well,
from
it-
its inception.
A little
'Cause we
over
had 2 at
that.
that time before we went to 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because we started in '02,
I remember.
we had a $162,000
Okay.
general fund. It, over the years, that 162 grew to be 200 and a little bit of change, but right about 200. And in 2011, between 10 and 11, that $200,000 went away. So we don't have that general fund flowing into supplement the rental program
Okay.
that we had previously.
So it's pretty much self-sustaining program then.
Right now it
From the
is, yes,
fees.
sir.
Yeah.
Because we cut the staff back to reflect what the fees are able to support. And what the fees can support is the administrative staff, half of Paul. It's not all Paul, half of Paul's time, because he also supervises, we combine those positions too. He also supervises the new work inspectors. And so when we figured it out, the current fee covers the current operation.
Now, is there any way to include language not to have a 4-year interior inspection, but to somehow add language to encourage voluntary participation by tenants, and also maybe a protection, somehow build in a protection for tenants who ask for inspectors to come look at their properties?
What I would recommend is that we would leave the language as is on this, and then we can develop an outreach program along the line of what Councilmember Metzner is suggesting, where we're looking at those 3,000 and we're doing a mailing to them saying, we're offering this inspection if you would like an inspection. And then, again, at a future work session, it's on staff's list of things to bring to you, is to talk about fair housing. And there's many jurisdictions that have housing commissions that address things such as retaliatory evictions and are in place to work with tenants when they have those types of situations.
I appreciate that. Yes, sir.
There is some relationship between the exterior of a building deteriorating and the interior.
Yes, sir.
Can't there be something done if there's a serious exterior problem? Can't there be something done to
That would
also
trigger an interior?
an interior inspection?
Well, I think the one thing that can be done with the increased staff, if we have obvious problems on the outside, and this is something we used to do when we had the staffing, you'd go up and knock on a door and say, hey, I'm here doing the exterior. You know, I see there's a problem with the rear stairs. Can I talk to you? And oftentimes that would lead to an interior inspection.
Okay.
So to clarify where we're at, and just to clarify, if we have a motion for the 22nd, if we had a motion on your agenda that reflected number 1, we eliminated number 2 from the motion and included.
Well, I think part of number 2, right?
Well,
Well,
I think we're saying keep it at the current
yes.
schedule,
Of turnover.
where it would be at turnover or no more than every 4 years.
Yes, sir.
And I thought we were going down from that 4.
We are on exteriors.
On the exterior, on the
Okay.
interior, we weren't recommending a change in
Okay.
the timing.
I got you.
So if we stayed with the current interior schedule, would a motion, do a majority of you want to see a motion on the 22nd for 1, 3, and 4? Or is that rushing?
Thumbs up if you're okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I mean,
got
it
4
clearly
thumbs up.
reflects,
I just want
A
to
lot of
read
things
this
we've been working
paragraph from the memo for everybody's benefit. This is on the 3rd page under outcomes. Staff recognize that balance is critical in our efforts and use experience to find balance and prioritize working with our customers. We also recognize that some choose to use the word code as a pejorative. It is not. The code of the City of Hagerstown establishes our community standards for neighborhoods. Our community standards for neighborhoods and the programs to apply the standards are a source of pride for our residents. Because ultimately, that's what we're doing this work for. So I just wanted to say that for the record.
And I'd like to
I
say.
do think this is an excellent memo. I echo Don's compliments on it.
And I'd like to say for the record that the next council coming in here, I only pray that they don't take steps backwards like the past did, because it put us 3.5 years behind. And that was not a good case scenario. And I don't care if it was budget constraints or what, that was something that was still needed for this city. And it just went bye-bye. And now we're trying to do catch-up, and it's impossible.
well, staff, or John, are you guys okay with doing that motion then? As
Yes, and we'll work with the legal counsel to put this together.
Thank you very much.
We thank you all for your support
Yeah,
on this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Paul, if you can hang out for the next one.
Now, the next item is just a general discussion. This topic has come up several times in the past. We sort of touched on it in the last item, but I think staff is curious to know what kinds of initiatives or actions we're seeking in the realm of nonprofit housing facilities. And I guess maybe this goes along with some of the stuff you're considering bringing forward to us in the coming months, but perhaps you could start by saying what problems you are already aware of or what work is already being done in this arena.
Well, currently, places such as Turning Point owned homes or Wells House or places like those are not governed by the rental licensing ordinance. And we would recommend that if it's the will of this body to have some regulatory program to ensure standards, to ensure there's not blight, to ensure that the properties are safe and habitable, that be a separate ordinance, a separate program from the rental licensing program. You run into, and we've only done some preliminary investigation in this, we wanted to hear from members of this body. Some agencies are licensed by the state. Some agencies may be licensed by a federal agency, and that's not the case with residential rentals. So we would not want to cloud the rental licensing ordinance with other types of housing that have a regulatory scheme on a state level, for example, that's already involved. We would want to work through those issues in a separate program, but we're here to listen and to then go and do our homework and investigate this and report back to you.
Well, I do think that, you brought up a good point in terms of state and federal partners, because part of the issue with the nonprofit housing, and of course this concentration of the housing, especially for poor people in downtown, and getting those state and federal partners to realize the impact that these facilities have on our community, especially in the concentration that they have. So I don't know what work could be done in that arena to engage the state and federal partners to make them aware of what the status is and what if anything, they could do to.
And that's why I think that just as many residents have pointed out to us, I think that our obligation, because I don't feel that we're going to largely change the state or federal approach to this issue, is that we need to engage the partners within the community so that they understand the delicate balance that we have in our ability to maintain an adequate level of available resources to partner in their efforts, and a stable and strong, viable community. The reason I asked for this is because everybody at this table, I'm sure, hears from individuals and friends and family and others that they're associated with that may work in any one of these organizations or be a partner entity in any one of these organizations. And for me, I never know exactly what the real story is out there, and I don't think any of us do, largely. But when I hear that what happens is an individual gets remanded from a court system outside of our community into a sheltering facility, and then from there gets transitioned into a transition housing, and then from there then is linked into local service provisions, and we attended a function last week or the week before where another entity appears to be created. There's 30 or 40 people in the room in various different organizations and governmental sectors talking about introducing ex-offenders or additional ex-offenders and getting funding to introduce additional ex-offenders. I believe the number was 70 more into the community. What they really mean is into downtown Hagerstown. I mean, I don't know how else to be, to be candid about it, but that's the common thread. And so I think that our question has to be, if that entity is going to grow from 0 to 70 and the number is going to continue to grow, and I'll use Region as an example, which went from sort of an emergency cold weather shelter that moved around from church to church, right, and now is a single source entity that has grown from, providing sort of this cold weather 40 shelter type bed to a 250 plus client base resource center. And you could go down that list and you can see that each entity continues to grow. I think the Wells houses went from 1 to 3 houses, or 15 to 45 beds. The question isn't whether we should or shouldn't be providing these services. In any community, you're going to need this. I think that the paramount question for us is, what is the viable holding capacity of these types of resources we had to provide? Because while while we sit here and we discuss these visions for economic reinvestment and redevelopment in downtown, I have to be very honest, I feel like we're struggling between two paths. And one path is that our downtown is set on a course to become a huge corporate conglomerate, nonprofit, social service entity made up of a faction of dozens of different entities, to another path of this viable, economic development engine, business, community-driven or oriented central business district, professional service, and clearly for at least the last several years, and especially since I would say 2005, when that downturn started to occur, you're seeing those paths become more and more divergent from one another, and we're going to have to make a decision at some point what a healthy balance is that we can sustain. And the state, in my humble opinion, the state does not seem to care what that balance is for this community. And I know folks hate when I use this example, but if you pull up registered sex offenders that have a Frederick address, Frederick is 2 to 3 times larger than the Hagerstown zip code. You see, I think the number is about 65. And Hagerstown, you pull it up and it's 200 and some.
Yep.
And I think if you did sort of stats of comparable social service related issues, there's an imbalance, and it's reflected in this course that I feel that we're on, and I don't feel like there is an adequate understanding at this table of what that course is and what the impact will be 5 years down the road. And I don't feel like there's an adequate understanding and communication between what our goals are as a city and what the goals of these various organizations are, and the impact to the city, because clearly there is a direct impact, and you can see it in our budget when we continue to struggle with assessments, we continue to struggle with neighborhood stability, we continue to struggle with home ownership and vacancy rates, and I don't care how you slice it. At the end of the day, one of them is going to give, and right now we are losing in that scale of giving in terms of maintaining a sustainable and viable and successful community.
It really is.
That's just a reality.
It really is a matter of critical mass. I always think of that phrase, critical mass. Right now, perhaps the balance is tipped to the side of poverty, to population of ex-offenders, whatever the nature of their offense might be. And I struggle with this. You can't displace poor people. We can't just say we're going to displace them or move them somewhere else. Like you said, these services are needed for these people. Let's take the Dagmar, for example. There's a lot of ex-offenders that live there, and I was taken on a tour by the new owner of that building, and I think I might have said it was deplorable, and I got a little flack for that because I was so kindly taken on a tour of that facility. And the bottom line is the current condition is deplorable. And if you're an ex-prisoner coming out of prison and you're living in the Dagmar Hotel, you might want to go back to prison because your living conditions will be better there.
So, Mayor.
And so what I believe in terms of critical mass is that, what is being recommended, for instance, in Urban Partners, where we are trying to encourage population growth of a different nature, then we at least create a balance where there's, for just as many poor people on subsidized housing, you'd have new homeowners who are moving into the city. It's creating that critical mass. The other issue that I've noticed in my year and a half sitting in this chair and engaging with the community is that the real problem in this community are the hypocrites of the landed gentry of this community. Because when I look at buildings surrounding City Hall, and I know who the owners of these buildings are, and these very people are the ones that say, what are you doing, city, about those people? But yet they're taking this public subsidy that keeps those people occupied in those buildings. That's the problem in this community. That's the problem. Everybody What do they say? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Look at the Alexander House. They had a pilot agreement that they never paid, and I don't care what it says on that paper. It says they were supposed to pay the amount paid in commercial tax, and they never paid it. And as soon as I raised the question with our city attorneys, it was for sale 2 weeks later, and now it's in someone else's hands, and it's a different problem. So, once again, the people who are on the board of that Alexander House were the landed gentry of this community. Well-established, institutional people that are respected in the community. And until some attitudes change, where this isn't a ghetto, like Councilmember Muntz has said, where people don't, no one wants them in their backyard, right? So let's buy a building and we'll stick them and warehouse them all in downtown Hagerstown. That seems to be the policy, whether it's written or null, for some folks in the community. And I think until we have to address the issues, whether it's through code, through rental licensing with these types of facilities or entities, but it's twofold. We have to address that path, but we also have to encourage the critical mass of people who want to be here. Who are looking to be urban pioneers, who have disposable income. The people we know we've been talking about wanting to get here for the last 20 or so years.
And I attended that function. I only attended briefly the other day, and I got to tell you, I left because I was frustrated. I was frustrated because you have 50 community partners sitting in a room trying to figure out how to bring additional ex-offenders into the community in a responsible manner. And while you want to sit there and agree that direction is a good thing,
It's a Christian
nobody wants to have the conversation about what is the impact on the neighborhoods in which that will occur,
Right.
because clearly,
Well, they don't live in those neighborhoods.
clearly the given
That's why
is
they
that it's
don't care.
going to be, and it's going to occur in a very finite, small portion of our urban core. And the next week we're going to have a conversation all over again about the degradation of our urban core. And I just don't have the answer, but I also don't feel like we've talked to the Rick Rocks and the other guys of the world that clearly have a very much more keen professional understanding of how all of this works than I do.
The bottom line
We
is
need to be able to see that from both sides.
you have to
of the
look at
table.
who profits from the subsidy.
Right.
Who profits from those Section 8 vouchers, or who profits from all the other public subsidies that are doled out to the people who are the ones we're
But that's
talking
a whole
about.
different story, because that's not your nonprofit. Your Section 8 is a rental housing
Not
issue.
right, but your
But
nonprofits
with
are. It's
But with our nonprofits, I mean, I've heard everything said around the table so far, agree with it all. But what hasn't been said is what we need to do. And my suggestions are twofold. One, that we immediately enact legislation that's analogous to a rental registration law with regards to nonprofits. We have staff figure out on the nonprofit side what you need. And we tell the nonprofits that's their licensing fee to be in this city. Now, we'll have our attorneys find out about state licensing, federal licensing, and all that stuff. But this is about rental businesses in the city of Hagerstown and municipal legislation. And let me make it very clear on this issue, I have no issue on interior inspections when it comes to these facilities. So, one, they should be subject to more stringent regulations than our rental registration. Two, you should hire as many staff as you absolutely need. And three, they should pay for 100% of it. Okay? So we get the staffing, we get the inspections at no expense. And we also don't make it quite so nice for them to be here, especially when you're telling me what you've seen. The second thing that I recommend, which may sound strange given the way I felt back then, and I changed no opinion. I think our timing, we had a great idea a day late and a dollar short, okay? That idea is passed. That expansion will take place. I am 100% in favor of enacting an emergency moratorium on further expansions or the whole thing we did before. The problem is there's no denying it. we were targeting a specific firm or business. There was nobody else that was talking about
Supposedly
expanding.
for profit, by the way.
Well, bottom line is there was nobody else talking about expanding. So when we did that, we opened up a can of worms with that one particular group. And there were various things that caused us issues. I'm in favor of proceeding with that moratorium as long as we don't face that same kind of litigation, which I don't think we will, if there's not somebody in the current business of expanding or moving in here. And if it's a moving in here people, that may be a whole different issue than somebody who's already established, who can show who they're servicing and all that stuff that I was extremely concerned about.
I agree with everything you just said, and I just wanted, before I forget, do we know if these nonprofit housing facilities pay a pilot? I know
No.
the Housing Authority pays a pilot. Do any of the other ones have a pilot agreement?
No, sir.
No.
Then
So
we should try to pursue a pilot agreement.
Well,
with these
whether it's a pilot or
entities,
whatever it
with
is,
a fee, the
it
registration
needs to
fee,
pay-
whatever.
Yeah, it needs to pay for everything we need. And if we're talking about, these are businesses that are not paying taxes to the city of Hagerstown.
Right.
When we talk about rental registration and we talk about the onus that we put on the property owners through our fees, I do have sympathy for them. And one of the people you really have sympathy for ultimately is a tenant, because we know, and that's not against the landlords, any business. I mean, any business, when they increase their overhead, they have to take an action. I have these folks we're dealing with are tax-paying citizens who come in and say, how much more you want out of us? The people that I'm talking about, I'd like to say we would like something out of you, especially when you look at the service requirements. And I would ask that our staff, our legal staff, look into the ability to charge nonprofits who are non-tax paying, who utilize city services, charge them fees for the utilization of those services. I think it's high time that if we're paying $50,000 a year to CRS and we're sending out our ambulances to provide taxi service to Washington County Hospital at Reach, they need to be under the same laws as the nuisance laws.
Right.
They need the same nuisance laws. Why should we say...
Excessive calls for service.
You got it.
Yeah.
Why should we say that non-tax paying businesses should be totally devoid of they
Any
can call
cost.
us for services all they want, they'll pay no taxes and they won't get any charges for it. But our tax paying citizens who do the same thing will pay penalties and fees for it.
Yeah.
And that includes Reach, that includes the Dagmar, that includes every one of these nonprofits. There is a reason they are here. Okay? Why are they here? Housing is cheap. They have no standards they have to undergo. They don't have to pay any taxes. They don't have to pay any fees for services. Why not come to Hagerstown?
Well, and again,
So
it goes back
we-
to my point about somebody is profiting off the subsidy.
Well, I think
Well,
it
that
speaks-
again is
somebody is
that's
profiting off
Section
the
8
subsidy.
though. That's a different story.
But I think it speaks to the ideas that was it Delegate McIntosh that we met with?
Yeah.
Sort of put into paper after having staff review sort of similar impacts in Baltimore City. And I said to her at that meeting, if you look across the state of Maryland, while we are the 6th largest municipality, we are second only to Baltimore City in the level of subsidy services that we incur as a community. I mean, those are just the numbers. And
so we need to put an end to it.
so I think that some of the thought process, that she at least instilled in my head that day, like I said, was pretty simple, direct, intelligent, approach to restoring some of that balance. And I'm sure that she sees it in her community just as clearly as we see it here.
Yeah, but she's outside that community with that $400,000 home. Okay, clarification. The Dagmar has been in new hands for about a month. That is turning around. Hopefully, it will be a good thing. Sex offenders, 15 was what I was told. We have over 200 in the city. Go on and see where the rest of them are at, okay? At one time, I had more on Broadway than I had down at the Dagmar, all right? Now, again, when we're looking at, and John, this is for you, because you know, I really, honestly, going around just trying to figure out, okay, what is this one and what is that one? I want to know exactly who they are, and the public should know who they are and where they are in this city.
Who they are, where they are, and the number of clients they serve.
Right, okay? The public needs to know exactly what we are being faced with, because when people talk to me,
Yeah, I didn't know the
but-
Wells House had
but-
3 different buildings and
Oh,
45
I got news
beds
for you.
now.
And we've got coming from Baltimore up here, and that's the most alarming thing.
judges place them
Okay,
there, though.
exactly.
Again, we have
okay?
no control
And
over
again,
that.
we have no control. And somewhere along the line, we should be able to have control of what is happening to this city. But I want to know. And when you're talking about bed facilities, well, now I'm concerned, because now, from what I'm being told, there is one that is actually offering now daycare, night care. But how long in the evening do we offer it? And when is it eventually then going to become something else? And that was a big concern of mine. And when it came to the moratorium, I wasn't looking specifically at this. I was looking at the one that's across the street that right now I can't remember the name.
Soul Haven.
Soul Haven, okay? And that is increasing. And the more that they increase programs, the more she's looking for space. That's why I had a problem. And that's why the attorney decided that, okay, this is how I'm going to play it. So hopefully, however it's being played this time, is that we have an edge, because this is the only way we are going to be able to succeed here. We have enough coming into the community that we have no idea where they're coming from, what they have been linked to, but we do know the ones that are in the community that have come from the prisons. So, you know, I mean, it's a no-brainer, but the public needs to know. Look, we are not living in a sainthood community, but we have to deal with what we're dealing with. And yes, we have poor people, but there were poor people, and there will always be poor people. And excuse me,
And it
but
doesn't
that's
mean-
exactly right.
right,
That's
doesn't mean you
exactly
can't
what
have
is stated.
self-respect and
you
have
have
pride in your
self-respect,
neighborhood,
okay?
right.
Born and raised in the West End. Do I know what it means? Yeah, I do. I saw it all around me. My mother knew how to handle money, which was very limited. When you went down on Foundry Street, there were people that were setting out that needed help. There's more people that are getting help today that don't need to help and should be put at work, and they're not, okay? So, you know, it's a matter of the people in Hagerstown has got to see, and as far as county, I'm still looking at county when it comes to code enforcement, okay? Code enforcement at the county is like, Neil, we really don't do that much with code enforcement, so good luck to, and I'm going back to code and trying to get them to play the game here, all right? Again, county, why don't county open up some of this? Oh no, because all of the amenities are right here in the center of Hagerstown. And again, that's where the tipping point is. And you will be told, oh, but for these prison releasees, they have places that they can walk to work. Well, gee, guess what? Hopewell Express takes a bus, okay? You just have to go to where it's at. And how far did you walk when you were a kid and walked to school?
Uphill both ways in the
Okay,
snow.
you got it, okay?
So I heard 3 things. I heard perhaps revisiting the moratorium. I know staff were going to continue work with the Planning Commission and you know, on those kinds of concepts anyway, so we'll look more at that. Some kind of fees for service or a pilot agreement with these nonprofit entities, and also the licensing regulations similar to the rental licensing. Is that what I heard? Was there anything else?
Yeah, I think you're
Any
missing an
suggestion?
important component. I mean, like, you know, we talk about W House and Wells and Reach and Turning Point and Soul Haven, but I have to tell you, I don't have a clear understanding of exactly what the process is. All I know is that at the end of the day, there is an impact to the community, and I don't feel like there is a adequate level of communication when I you know, attend a function with some expectation that we're going to share concerns along with ideas on how to improve things, and I'm not certain that other half of the conversation is happening.
No, it's business as usual.
At the local level, and
Right.
you know, and I'm fairly certain it doesn't exist at the state level. I mean, a good example would be the email that we got the other day where the gentleman said, I was at the library,
Yeah.
and there was a homeless guy there.
Right.
I could just tell he was, I guess. And, I felt, affronted and unsafe, etc.
Because he had his
Nothing
child
ever
there.
happened, but he felt that way. Why don't you keep him over at Reach, confined over at Reach where they belong? And I respond to the gentleman, and I'm like, and provide extra police service. And I'm like, number one, it's not a city facility. Number two, we provide more police at that facility than any other
Yeah, we
governmental
do.
entity, even though we're not responsible for it.
Right.
And number three, there is no law that forces, the confinement and warehousing of free individuals. But so at the same time, I want to be able to understand that partnership that we have in this community is balanced, and is productive. And I just don't feel like we're there, and I feel like there is a large majority out there that simply assumes that all of it belongs right here in downtown. And that is not a path that will be successful for this downtown.
It strikes me that the Hagerstown Housing Authority is so much larger than the Washington County Housing Authority.
Oh, yeah.
And the
Oh,
flip
yeah.
side is, the housing authorities have not created any significant issues.
No, but I think it speaks to
No,
this
it actually
idea.
has improved.
It speaks to this idea, when someone said, well, if these people aren't going to be at the Dagmar, then where are they going to go?
And Mayor,
Williamsport, Smithsburg,
No.
Clear Spring,
And-
Funkstown.
until we as a body do what we finally started talking about over the last 2 months, which is to tell all these people who are coming in with their hands out to us alone that we are like Williamsport, Smithsburg, Clear Spring, Funkstown. Go to the county. We have taught everybody a lesson. Not only have we taught them how easy it is to bring the nonprofits down, but we've also taught everybody we'll fund them. We'll fund them, and we do not expect any other municipalities in Washington County to do the same. None. So it's so expected that these nonprofits who are getting money from the county don't even think when you say, did you go to Williamsport? They look at you like, well, why would I do that? This is where I get my money from. And I'm telling you now that next year when they all come back, when we tell them, yeah, we'll continue to be the only municipality in the county that funds you, why should we be surprised when they come here? What should our surprise be? So I again emphasize, as long as we continue sending that message that we're the only funding source, and we need to send the message to the library to put some pressure on the county commissioners. We need to start taking some approaches that this city is what it is. It is not miniature Washington County. It's the city of Hagerstown. The county is responsible for funding a lot of things, and these folks need to stay away from us unless they're getting funding from all these other municipalities.
So just to add to the other list of possible action items, I also heard we need to know what these entities are, where they are, and how many clients they serve, and
Yeah,
then,
and also-
then any partnerships or communication that we already have established with them.
I'd like to just be able to see how lopsided it is, okay? And knowing that the expansion is going to be more, all right?
And I'll tell you, you'll find that out if we adopt this nuisance code. You'll find it out. You'll find
I
out
mean, it
where
is
the
very-
calls are going
it is-
to,
it
and,
is very,
and
very
these folks need to
lopsided.
pay for it then.
Yep.
Any other comments on this topic? It's certainly one that inspires passions in everybody and obviously strong feelings, and we can always bring it back to
Well-
the agenda as more detailed information comes and
I just think
proposals.
that Kristen's approach is right on. It really is. And I know that he gets upset because Kristen will sit and he'll say and he'll say and he'll think, but nobody's listening to me. And
We just
yeah,
try to
I
make
am.
him-
I
we
am.
just try to make
But
him
I
feel that
am.
way.
No, but I am listening because his point is, we are going to hopefully be able to improve the downtown at what cost? If we have private people that's going to come in here, again, at what cost? And when we are looking at what we have in the area, and it is all around that area, then what is this whole lopsided, okay? And we need to see that, John. We really need to see it.
And we'll pull that information together,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Maybe shoot for,
One thing that needs some attention, and I don't know how to do this, but quite frankly, a lot of the organizations that come in here and provide services are funded by the state and the federal government, but the city is never informed that these funds are going to be supporting these social programs, medical programs, or whatever kind of programs that we have to provide the services to. Somehow, from the federal government and from the state government, we have to figure out what they're doing to us, who they're sending us.
One of the points that Urban Partners made over and over is, for these types of entities, look at who is funding them and go to those people and
Yeah.
try to change the game
Yeah.
that way, not necessarily even with the organizations themselves, but like you say, whether it's the state or the federal or even other
Right.
private
Right.
entities.
Well, that's where you have to use your lobbying. I'm not going down to lobby at Annapolis, but we need to lobby the ones that are doing the hurt to what we are experiencing. And it has just gotten totally out of control. That's,
Any questions from staff in terms of direction or what
I
next?
guess I was just thinking, John and Mayor and Council, we'd come back on August 12th.
Sounds great.
Try
Yeah.
to put together a little bit of an outline. It's going to take some time to work
Right.
through some of these
Sure.
things, but I think it's good direction for us.
Yeah, we took good notes.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you.
job. Thank you.
So we'll be back on August 12th.
Okay.
If I may, just one thing, if I could jump back to the rental licensing, I just wanted to clarify so we don't have this question. From a staff perspective, on the fee, what we were proposing is that would increase for the next license year, which that's next spring. And then if there's any new properties that become rentals after January 1. So this doesn't impact anyone now. It gives the vast majority of property owners, the existing rentals, almost an entire year to prepare. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you, John.
Point.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. The next item is a request from Jameson Door for paving at the end of Alley 1-144.
Mr. Mayor, I'm fine with this. I don't know if you are real familiar with this.
I think it's a perfectly reasonable
Yeah.
request.
Yeah.
The only alternative would be to pave that paper part of Maple Alley, right? And I don't think we want to do that.
Well, the bottom line is,
saying that would be a
for the
cut-through?
folks who think we're paving someone's private property, it is absolutely clear that this alley dumps out onto their property. And it's,
Right.
and you know, I'm assuming there must be some
I
sort of
personally
right of
drive
way.
my car
I do too.
from that alley
So I think we
over to
all
Jameson
agree
Drive.
that that's,
Just to clarify, I talked to him to John up at Jameson Door since I wrote this, and what they would like for us to do is let them do the work, give them $5,000, and then that would be our share of the
that's
paving.
fantastic.
Sounds like a plan.
That's
Has there ever
fantastic.
been any discussion of them dedicating that open space to the city as a park?
I've heard
Just out of
rumors of that, but
curiosity.
I've never received any formal,
I take it they lost a lot of azaleas in the cold winter.
yeah, I think they have.
Has there ever been an ask by the city for that, or are we
Not to my
interested in
knowledge.
that? Would that be?
yeah, go
I
ahead,
think
Mayor.
they've done a wonderful job of maintaining it. And if
Well, they
give
sure
it to us,
have.
then we have a wonderful job of
So if all we have to
maintaining
do is
it.
pay them $5,000 to
Right.
pave every so many years, then we've got a good deal.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Any objections to this?
No.
Okay. Thank you,
No.
sir.
They're good business.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and they've been with
And
us
they've
for over
stuck
100
around.
years,
Yeah.
so
Yep, they have,
they're
and I'll
good
tell
folks.
you,
the least
it
we
was
could do.
pretty lean. It was
They're good
pretty
folks.
lean in the past 2 years. Yeah, so they've done really well.
The other item, the next item is the gateway signs.
All for it. I think it's a great
It's a
idea.
great idea.
I would agree, and I appreciate the fact that the both
Yes.
sister cities are mentioned in there. I know that makes some people happy who've been
And I would
advocating for that.
commend Rodney and his fantastic presentation. It's all to do this.
Good piece of
Picture's
work.
worth 1,000 words.
Rodney, just real quick, just cover the funding, because that one sign is a sizable
Right.
sign, or,
It is a large sign, but, you know, it's
That's
kind of a
what we want.
monumental
Yep.
gateway sign. It's,
How much was put towards the sign so far? Wasn't there a,
there's a CIP project of 35,000.
okay, but
Is that what you mean?
no. Did Vincent Grove, did he put money towards the sign?
On Franklin Street.
That's Franklin Street.
And
Where's this going?
This large
Okay,
sign.
now I'm confused.
That's
Yeah.
9,000 of the money is coming to the Franklin Street plan.
Yeah, and Mr. Grove had provided money for public art. It wasn't the signage.
Okay, it was the art then. Then I am talking about the
West End
right
Little League,
place.
right?
Okay.
Sorry, that's West End Little League.
Yes, this is out of Lane Park. And then these signs are in the downtown. One would be on Franklin Street.
Right.
Out of Cannon, and the
Yes.
other one would be up somewhere around HPD.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it'd be great. I just,
So we do have funding
And we'll
budgeted.
put cameras on all three of them.
well, it's, you know.
As soon
it's
as you can
interesting.
identify the funding for that.
Well,
that's
with
what
either that or
cameras
we'll clean graffiti up.
No, I hear you.
The good news is, knock on wood, you know, a lot of our artwork has never been damaged. None of our murals have had, right, haven't. So hopefully this won't.
so Rodney, you've got what you need to
Yep.
move forward on
Just
both
wanted
of-
to move
or all
forward
three
if it's okay.
sides.
They
But
like to do
Lou,
real
the
roadblocks.
building on Franklin Street where our mural is deteriorating badly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you
thank
for
you.
that. Good work. The last item on the agenda is the council chamber improvements. I know some of you are aware that.
Enjoying them right now.
What, by just being
Chairs.
here? Yes, there are new chairs.
See
There are
the
new-
chair? I want a label under here. This is Penny's chair.
Penny's
Because
chair.
Penny's
Make-
cushion goes right here.
Okay.
Don't move it one way or the other. Penny's chair, piece of tape.
There
Piece
you
of
go.
tape.
Because when Lou gives
Duly
you that up
noted.
and down and, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want Lou's chair.
We'll save it on your settings.
Could that be done for the whole council? I mean,
No, honestly, I mean,
can
you
label
know,
Yeah, that'd be a
Label
good
the
idea.
chairs.
No, that'd be a good idea.
So I know Aaron is here, and I think one of the key issues for making council chambers is just the appearance on TV and how it looks, in addition to just the drab earth tones that currently reside here in the room. I know they're looking at it from a technical standpoint as they upgrade the video cameras in council chambers. We thought we'd just take a look at making other improvements since it hasn't been done since 1987. So if Aaron or the clerk would like to say
Yeah.
anything, take it away.
We have the RFP out now for all new audio and video broadcast equipment to help enhance the experience for viewers who watch from home. And as the mayor said, some aesthetic changes. We're looking for some new paint schemes that will make the color enhanced on the TV broadcast. And we're also looking into getting some new seating that can be removed and stacked to allow for some greater versatility of the council chambers for uses.
And to be clear, what we're talking about on that new seating was the permanent seating in the audience limits the use of the room.
Right.
And what we were talking about at the staff level was coming in with seats that you can attach side by side so that be fixed for like meetings like this or a regular meeting. But if we wanted to have a large group meeting where you wanted people sitting in a circle or different workstations, you could move chairs around.
Right.
Is that okay?
It's
What
okay
we're
with
talking about
me,
is
yeah.
removing those.
Yes.
Same configuration when they are hooked together, so it would look the same, just it would be uniform seating as well.
And then the other thing is, in addition to the paint, there will be new carpet.
Yeah.
And the ugly barred valances will be removed.
they're not ugly.
The
They just don't fit with your decor.
Well, it is a little dated. It does have a little bit of a prison effect. The other thing is that the curtain there is an antique. It was actually donated by the Hebrew Women's Society back in 1941 at the dedication of City Hall.
Okay, so where's that going?
Well, we probably would need to put it in the archives to pack it up, store it properly so that it doesn't deteriorate. But then the proposal is to have a seal made out of acrylic that is, would be more modern and clean looking. And then, should we do the big reveal?
If you'd like to play
TV
Vanna,
show.
go for
Come
it.
on now. Okay, so just because staff is uncomfortable with making this executive decision without council feedback, this would be the color scheme for the council chamber. This would be the wall color, and then this darker color here would be the trim and all the others. Everybody okay with that?
And the mayor just has to get a new polo because he would be camouflaged
Right.
with that.
Is that how that works?
And we're getting the money from where to do this? Please tell the public after we just went through a budget that was.
Sure.
Two funded projects in our CIP, one for City Hall improvements, one for a completed Public Works project that had about 2,000 in savings. So we're thinking to do everything, the carpet, the paint, windows, seating, 10,000 would be the budget using existing funds.
I would just, not to micromanage, but I would suggest we can probably find a place to hang that in one of our buildings with a little interpretive sign with it.
I think that's a
that'd
very
be
good
nice.
idea.
I can think of the Elizabeth Hager Center just off the top
Sure.
of my head. There's
Absolutely.
places we could hang that.
Well, and
with
the fifth
interpretive
floor of this building was designed to be an archives, and I don't know if anyone's been to the fifth floor lately, but it's in pretty bad shape.
Is that where
And
the
I
bell's
think
at?
the bell is actually up in the tower.
Oh, well, I didn't know if they moved it from the tower down.
No, it's still up in the tower, but I do think, we are the current mayor and council, we have to be good stewards of this building, and I know
Let's eventually take a trip up there.
no one wants to
can
spend
we?
any money. I know no one wants to spend any money on City Hall because it looks like we're wasting money if we do that, but we do have to be good stewards
Right.
of this facility, and I take that seriously, and I think we should look at not only these improvements we're making in the council chamber, but that fifth floor needs some attention. It would be nice to restore some kind of archives or some kind of something up there.
That would be a great draw too to City Hall. That's just another one on the tour,
Right.
And it's something that does need to be looked at. So,
I'm all for what you just indicated.
Okay,
It'll
great.
be very
Any
good
objections?
time.
And,
Questions?
And we'll have better hearing facilities when it's
Yes.
finished, right?
Yes.
Now, will it be like, when you go to church and if you can't hear, like you could like pick up a little earpiece or something, or is it just going to be better sound overall, so we don't have to worry about
We
that?
have that available now.
Oh, okay.
What the new speakers that we're getting are actually a line array speaker, so it will actually blend in better with the columns in council chamber, and it will actually have better dispersal of audio as well to both the dais area and the gallery area.
And did you want to mention the screens that will be placed up to the plans for those?
Rather than carting out the projector each time, we're going to have two video presentation screens located in here as well.
That would be retractable,
That's excellent. That makes so much sense.
right?
They'll actually be mounted LED screens.
Okay, that's right, LED screen, right, not a,
So would they be
Right.
about the size of the flag there? Is that
Yeah, a little larger than that.
a little larger than that?
That's great. That's
and
great.
I think that'll help mayor and council, help
Yeah.
all of us.
Everybody.
Yeah,
So
better
we won't
viewing.
be dealing with projections, we'll be dealing with LED screens. We need to come up to modern days.
1990s?
Yeah.
Maybe 2,000.
The only other comment I was gonna make is the ramp would remain just to keep
Right.
this part of the room accessible. We thought
Yes.
that was important.
yeah.
So
Agreed.
just a note on that.
The new carpeting will be very nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you, Aaron.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you all.
All right, city administrators' comments.
None from me this evening.
All right, we'll start with the council. Mr. Munson, would you like to start?
I would. I'd like to say that the fireworks on the 4th of July were spectacular. And in good part, they were spectacular because it was a night that was essentially trouble-free. And we can thank for that the police, the parks, Public Works, Karen Giffen. It was just a wonderful night in the city of Hagerstown. And the citizens can really be proud of the evening. And I really am deeply appreciative, as everybody on this council is, I know, and Mayor, of the work that our employees did to make it go so well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alshire.
I would just ditto Councilmember Munson's comments. I don't have it.
Okay, Mr. Messmer.
Everything that we said about the fireworks, I would agree with. I would commend the police for coming up with their new plan that was very effective and did a very good job. I'd like to thank everybody for the condolences that I received on the death of my mom. And there was one other thing that I wanted to say, and it's left me right now. So if it comes to me
It'll
before
come
Penny's
back.
done, I'll figure it out.
It'll come back.
Ms. Nye.
Okay, flooding. Flooding,
I know what I
flooding,
wanted to
flooding,
say,
flooding, flooding. Go ahead, Lou, flooding.
What I did want to say, in light of all the conversations we've had in this session and others about how Hagerstown is failing and all of that stuff, I have the son of my first cousin and his wife and family moved from California to Hagerstown about a year and a half ago. Not only did he let me know that it was one of the best fireworks shows that he's seen, but he lost his phone. And as he told us the next day, you know, in California, I would have never gotten a phone call from somebody saying they found my phone. So, you know, Hagerstown isn't that bad. We still have a very nice community, and we have our issues, but we still have people who'll pick up the phone and say, I found your cell phone sitting here in the park, and I thought you'd want it back. And that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you for that. Flooding.
Flooding, storm drains. You know, poor Eric, you know, he like, oh, it's her, and I know. But, you know, I get phone calls, this side of the drain's working, that side of the drain's not working, and I just need to know, do we have the equipment, and Eric already left, all right, that somehow, because, and I addressed this before, we have the storm drains where there are grates, all right? A lot of those are clogged, and you only have like that much that can go down. Now, the whole problem with some of the flooding came because of new development, all right? A lot of it we cannot correct. But I need to know, equipment-wise, do we have what we need to do what we need to do?
In terms of what, clearing the storm drains?
Cleaning these storm drains.
I don't know if it's a matter of equipment as much as it is manpower. And
No,
I know
it's
Public
also
Works,
equipment. I think
I talked to
equipment
Bruce
too.
about it
I
earlier.
think that there's a piece of equipment too, and right now I don't remember the name of it. But you know, there's just so much of this, and grant you, okay, we saw torrential,
Right.
but that's not saying that we're not going to see torrential for the next 5 years. We are in that zone, so somewhere, somehow, it's a matter of looking at. And also contractual. Rodney, you here. Can you tell me, as far as mowing, all right? And that would be Public Works as well, but you're fairgrounds.
Right.
So fairgrounds would, I want to know, that's contractually done, is it not?
All the parks are.
Okay, so can you please tell me, when they mow, why is it do they have to blow it into the street and then it just stays?
Yeah.
It washes into the storm drains. We've got citizens that do the same thing, but I can't correct them.
I can definitely talk to them.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, and the BMX track, and God love Junior, the BMX track continually moves dirt and moves dirt
I
and
noticed
moves
the
dirt
same
and moves
thing.
dirt.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're right.
now, with that, again, with the rains, where do we have the collection of mud going? Down to Fairground. Where did we have the flooding where we just put in new drains? Right at Fairground. So Jim Bender was out there this morning. Dikey, I think, was out there this morning. And it was like, oh my, something's not right. Well, something's not right because we've got a lot of this that's flushing down.
Okay.
So, you know, and I mean, if it doesn't continually move, then it's going to be laying there.
I know the BMX track rebuilt their track. They had some national designer come in and change the track for them, all at their expense. But
But that
I need
doesn't
to make
matter.
sure
I told Junior, can't they cover it?
Or
to
provide sediment
cover.
control.
You know, I mean,
Yeah,
they've got to
sediment
do
control.
something
Yeah.
because,
I
you
can
know,
take
they
care of that.
keep expanding. And look, they've got a great setup from the city, okay? Because at one time, I think this was based out of Pennsylvania, and it still could be based out of Pennsylvania, but they utilize it here, okay?
Yeah.
So, you know, and I just think, okay, you know what? Yeah, it's a problem,
I
a
can take care
major
of that
problem.
one. Yep.
But these storm drains are, and I actually saw one guy that I thought, you know what, he's really doing a good job. He's picking up cans from around, and what does he do? Picks the can up, and he throws them right down in the storm drain. So, you know, look, I don't know how to stop it, but I know when you have drains and they're only this much, as far as being able to take that water, major problem. And
Well,
up
and
on, you know,
I do think that, you know, when you get 2 inches of rain in an hour, I think that just tests the capacity of those systems, even if
well,
they're not
it's
clogged.
tested,
Even
but-
if they're not
but-
clogged.
But look,
But I do think,
look,
sure, I do think also.
manpower at Public Works we don't have. Eric is struggling.
Well, and the other thing I would suggest is that, you know, I know of some clogged storm drains in my neighborhood. I was just talking about it with some folks earlier, and my plan is after this meeting tonight, I'm going to go home and just clean them myself, because I think that as neighbors in neighborhoods, that's just something we can do to support the operations
And
of the
believe
city.
me, that's what some people are doing, but not majority. Just like with the trees. We planted trees and go and look at how the trees are being taken care of. And it really is a sin, because on Broadway, you've got a beautiful streetscape. And then you look down. Franklin Street, you're experiencing the same thing with Franklin Street. City is doing the cleanup. How many participants do you have? Not many. So, you know, I mean, it's a matter of sooner or later, you have to come to the realization that are we going to do it, or is the public going to do it? And I think that it's going to ultimately come down to, no, city is going to have to maintain it.
Sure.
So, but anyway, if there's anything that Eric needs, if there's something that we're not using that we should be using, and he'll scream at me now tomorrow, because
Bruce
he'll
said
say,
he'll-
and
he'll-
just tell him I addressed it, he left.
He'll check on the storm drain issue and update all of us on
Yeah,
that.
but anyway, like I said, a lot of the grass clippings, they're just there.
I think it's important for the citizens to understand, though, that our storm drain system was designed to handle the city of Hagerstown.
Correct.
And with development occurring and channelizing water
Yep.
through the entire length of the Marsh Run, all the way up into Leitersburg,
Right.
if you drive out there, the homes that are there now weren't there 10, 15 years ago, and certainly not 50 years ago. I don't care how clean you get those storm drains. With the additional growth,
Yeah, it
they will
is.
never be able to handle
But it's not
that
it-
rain.
Right.
That's why we need a rain
Ever
tax
again.
to build better
And
stormwater management systems.
I don't think that you
Darn
have the
rain tax.
capability to expand the size of those in the locations that they are. And I made this argument today in the email is, if you drive out to Robinwood, what you see is a product of MDE direction of stormwater management ponds managing quantity, which worked. Then you had the state changing the position of stormwater management managing quality, which means open swale systems through on-lot grading, which is what you have in the development out Marsh Run. That type of development will channelize water, force it in to those areas that cannot handle that capacity and not handle quantity, and the only way to fix it is regionalization of stormwater management ponds, which the state doesn't have the appetite to do. That's
Well, and
that's the
again, I
reality.
think that I did mention county, because a lot of the problem is with county. And again, our taxes, big chunk county, okay? And also, I want to commend the Planning Commission. I believe that's who, in fact, did do this. When they came in and asked for more apartments at Cortland, they were denied. Is that the case? I'm hoping.
I heard it's
What
like
was
3 to
it?
1 or something like that.
Well, you know, we can't do anymore. Of course, I never voted to do it to begin with, so, you know, but when I heard that that was even going to happen, I thought, oh, no. But anyway, that was a good job on their part.
Well, please.
Much of the flooding issues ended up at the desk of Rodney Tissue. Rodney took the brunt of them. He handled dozens and dozens of complaints, and including several from me, including one today he probably hasn't even seen yet. And I want to thank Rodney. This was a difficult situation. When you get 2 inches of rain, it presents problems that no one ever anticipates. So Rodney, thank you for all you've done and all you will do. We clearly understand how difficult it has been.
And the city engineer, Rodney Tishu, just put a shout out to Jim Bender and the rest of his staff that are handling a lot of that. So, and along those lines, I also want to give a lot of credit to the fire department, who was out helping a lot of people pump their basements, pumping water out of basements during those storms last week. So they deserve a lot of credit, a lot of long hours, and helping a lot of frantic community members. So I want to give them a lot of credit. And speaking of July 4th, I want to echo all the comments about the fireworks and the organization, the safety. I think everybody had a great time. I also want to recognize the Police Athletic League. They had their obstacle course up and running, and it is looking really good. There were, dozens and dozens of kids jumping around and playing when I was out there. And in addition, I want to thank Steve Bachmiller, Linda Irvin Craig, all the rest of the folks who put together the Civil War demonstration or exhibit on the 150th anniversary of the ransoming of Hagerstown. That happened a year ago, or 150 years ago, 2 days ago, and I learned a lot that day about the history of Hagerstown and what happened during that particular incident. I did not realize that we were the first that the Confederates ransomed, and that we got the money together so fast that they upped the ante on every community after us. So I guess in that regard we got off good, and they didn't burn our city down.
Oh, that's intense.
Yes, the Bodners, who put the fireworks on for 13 years. I would definitely agree with that. They deserve a lot of credit. Speaking of torrential rain, it looks like we're getting another storm right now. And I also want to mention that the 100th anniversary of the Hagerstown Municipal Band is this year. There is a concert to celebrate this momentous occasion on Sunday, July 13th at 7:30 p.m.